Alright everyone, this is Brant Rudiman, the CT310 TA, and I'm going to go over the first recitation on setting up your environment so that you can go on to the CS department URL, website URL, and actually see the content that you're creating for the class. So whether that's HTML or PHP or CSS stuff that's all rendering together. I'm going to show you how to go ahead and set that up so that works for you, so that later on in class, when you're trying to develop your web pages and websites and stuff, you have a place to test it, you have a place to display it. So first thing I want to show you is that every student here and professors, and actually, for example, CT310, right, has a little directory underneath the cs.colostate.edu domain. So for example, Ben Say, who is the instructor for this course, has his webpage under bsay, which is presumably his CSU EID. And I would have one, but since I'm showing you how to set it up today, none of my stuff is set up, but it will be under Brant R, which is my EID. And for example, CT310 is under the CT310 EID, and that's where all its web content is published. So when you go ahead and want to publish your content to the public web through the CS.colostate domain, you'll be putting your EID in here. So it'll be a tilde and then your EID, whatever that might be. So first things first is let's look at these recitation instructions. So like I showed you earlier, there is one under your EID. So if you go to www.cs.colostate.edu and then you do a tilde, you do your EID, mine's Brant R. Remember, there's nothing in my public right now, so that's why it's giving me these errors. There's also, in addition to the public-facing web page that you have, there is actually a private, local-facing one that is only accessible on the CSU campus. Now today I am working from home recording this video, but I'm actually using a VPN to connect to CSU's campus internet or campus network, so that way I can show you the local HTML as well. And so when you want to visit that, it'll be under 4444. This is something that the sysadmins in the CS building set up, so I can't say that this will exist indefinitely, but for the case of this class, you'll be able to go to 4444 and visit your local HTML directory and get your local web files. Now when you do this, you have to use HTTP secure, because there's two servers running in the local domain. There's the 4444 one. There's actually another one that's 8888 that uses unsecure or just regular HTTP, but we won't be using that for this class, so use 4444. Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually set these up and put some HTML in them so you can see how they work. So first things first is, since I'm working from home, I have actually SSH'd into the lab machine. I'm using Olympia in the CS120 lab. And as you can see from my home directory, I currently don't have a public HTML. I have these backups for later on in class. That's content that I didn't want to delete and have to redo. So first things first is we're going to make the directory public HTML. We'll use the make dir command. So it'll look like this. And now if I do an ls, you can see that my public HTML exists right here. Now we want to set the permissions on this directory such that the way that these servers work is that they know about your EID, the existence of your user, and they look in your user's home directory. So currently, if I show you, I'm in my home directory, right? Grad Brant R, and then public HTML is underneath that. And so the CS Apache servers, they look into your home directory to find public HTML, and then they go in there and they serve those HTML files and PHP files that would be in there. So in order to let that server access your files, we have to set the permissions on that directory such that that server is allowed to do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it to 755. chmod just stands for change modifiers, or it's a change permissions command. If you need to learn or want to read more about it, you can man chmod on your CS machine or over the SSH connection, and you can actually get a some information about how it works. Okay, so now if I do an ls-l to list the permissions, you will see that public HTML right here now has read and execute permissions for group and other. So anyone in the grad student group and anyone who's on the CS machines can read and execute in this public HTML directory. And then I have all the permissions set for myself. So now I'm going to change into this directory, and we're going to do things a little bit out of order. I'm going to skip to step 3 on this recitation so that I can show you that this actually works. So I'm going to download this HTML file. If you go to this page, you can see it looks kind of like this. I'm going to download this file, and I'm going to host that on my CS account. So I'm going to copy the link address, and I'm going to do wget for webget, and I'm just going to paste it in there, download that file. So now I have this in my public HTML. Now remember, whenever you create a new file on the CS machines, the permissions are set basically to default read and write for you only. Now, other people need to access this file. The web server needs to get it, so I'm actually going to change the modifiers on this to 755 as well. Okay, so now if I do an ls-l, you can see those read and execute permissions are available to other people. Now, what we will do is we're going to go to cs.colostate.edu / Brant R, my EID, and then we're going to go to testpublic.html. Now that is the name of this file. So if I print my working directory, Brant R, I'm under public HTML, and then this file testpublic exists in public HTML, and so that's the file name that I'm going to type in here. Now basically the best way to think about this is your public HTML is a root directory that can be accessed through your EID /. So let's see if this loads. There we go. So this public file loads and our public HTML is set up. So later on we'll talk about how to edit HTML files and how to actually play with this and add content and so forth. But for now you just want to be able to actually serve an HTML file out to the web. Now we're basically going to repeat this process for our local HTML. So I'm going back to my home directory. I'm going to make a directory local HTML. I'm going to set the modifiers up so that the server can access it. I'm going to go in there, and now I'm going to download this local HTML file, wget. You can see it's there. You can see the permissions aren't set up properly, so I'm going to 755 test local. So now the permissions are set up properly. Okay, we should be able to access this file now. So here's the trick. Here's my test public file, right? So we're going to delete that because the name of this one is now test local. This will be test local. So I'm going to my test local file, but this won't work because this test local is in my local HTML and it doesn't exist in my public HTML. So I'm going to do 4444 to access the local servers at the CS building, and now we should get something. Yeah, exactly. So this is perfect. So this is basically just the basics of setting up your environment. It's important to understand that starting here is actually a file path that starts inside of this local HTML directory. So if I were to make, let's say, index files local, I were to make this set of 3 directories, and then I'm going to copy my test local into. And let's change the permissions on that. You don't have to fully understand what I'm doing here. I'm just doing this as an example. So now if I wanted to access the file that was located all the way down there, this test local HTML, I need to put this entire file path in. So I'm going to go to index files local test local. And now I'm able to access that file. Now if I just did half of the file path, this wouldn't exist, and so it would give me a not found, or in some cases, if we're not even looking for a file, if we do this, it'll give us a forbidden because there's no file that we're trying to access and it doesn't want to let us access this directory. So basically, you just understanding that This local HTML is a directory inside of your CS department home directory that can serve up files, and you can make a directory structure for all your projects and so forth. That's just the basics. That's all you really need to know for this lab. And in the next lab, we will actually go over writing some basic HTML code. So thank you for watching this, and I hope that it is helpful content for you.